Greetings from the apocalypse. So I thought we'd talk a little bit about Jett Sett. If you've never used Jett Sett before, you may have heard it's thermoplastic. What does that mean? Basically, it's a kind of plastic that when it's heated in hot water, it'll turn clear, and then you can shape it in all kinds of different ways. You let it cool for a few minutes, it turns opaque, and it becomes like rock hard. Now, this has a huge amount of uses for you can make your own tool handles, you can do all kinds of stuff with it. What we use it for here the most is like setting solutions. So here's this lovely ring that I showed you before that Alexis, our apprentice, made. And we're at the point where we're going to set it. We're going to use my engraving ball, but you would just use a vise or whatever it is you happen to have. But if you'll notice, if I take this and I put it down into the vise, if you kind of look from the side, if I were to close this up, that little point at the edge of the bezel, you see that? Right there. That would be right up against my surface. And what more than likely would happen, we'll end up hammering on the bezel a little. I don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to use the Jett Sett to fill up this ring so that I can clamp it in the vise really safely and I don't have to worry about getting any damage. This ring is pretty chunky, but this also works really well on delicate things that you can't just really clamp in a vise without doing some kind of damage to. So I'll show you how to use it. It's really easy to use. And the bright side about Jett Sett is that once you buy it, you will have it for the rest of your life because it's endlessly reusable. So I threw some Jett Sett in the bowl of water. That's a Pyrex dish, by the way, so I know it's microwave safe. And I'm going to microwave it for a minute or two till the water's nice and hot. And what I'll be looking for is when it gets heated up enough, it'll look like fish eggs. You know, all those little pieces will turn clear instead of being opaque and white like they are right now. So 30 seconds, not enough. Water's steaming, but it's still opaque. So I'm going to microwave it again for another 30 seconds. So this was after about 90 seconds, but like I said, you'll just use your own judgment. When it's nice and hot and they all turn clear like that, that means it's soft and it's ready to use. So I'm going to carefully carry it back to my bench and use it. So I've got my Jett Sett is nice and clear now. Now, because I microwaved this water, I am not going to stick my hands right in it because that would burn. So usually I take a big pair of sort of ugly tweezers and I'm going to fish it out and I'm going to put it in a bowl of cool water just for a second so that I can handle it. Because otherwise, you will burn your fingers and you won't like it too much. It's still going to be warm, don't get me wrong. So I'm going to kind of, woo-woo, keep my fingers, hot potato, keep my fingers moving. Obviously, I melted a lot more than I'm going to need. But since it's endlessly reusable, we don't care. So I'm going to kind of just use my fingers and shove it in here. Jett Sett does like to stick to your nail polish, so if you have a manicure that you're really trying to preserve, I suggest putting some gloves on. This is the end of the week, and mine is already to shit, so I'm not going to worry too much. You see, I'm just going to kind of shove it in there. Now, the most important thing for you to remember at this point is to make sure to go ahead and clamp it in your vise or whatever before it hardens. Once it hardens, it's going to have all kinds of funny rounded edges that will be very difficult to shape. And what I want to do, while it's still a little bit soft, is stick it in here. You see what I mean? So that it's squeezed and tight. Now, the only other thing you have to think about is make sure that you don't squeeze it so hard that it just covers up all the spots on the top that we're going to need to get to when we set. So I just have my finger, you know what I mean? I'm going to press to make sure I've got plenty of room to still set my stone, which I do, like so. Okay, and then all I have to do is let it sit for, who knows, maybe 5 minutes. It doesn't take very long at all. And you'll know because it'll become totally opaque. And when it's opaque, it's hard as a rock. We can set, we can do everything we want to do without worrying about any kind of risk to damage to our setting. And then when we're all done setting, we'll submerge this, or at least dip part of it into hot water again and take it out. So Jett Sett is really kind of
I guess I'm old enough to know when Jett Sett came on the scene, and it really was kind of an innovation for setting. It's so handy for so many scenarios where you'd have to be concerned about damage to your piece, or, you know, how am I going to support it? Whereas now you have this, it's just, it's pretty amazing. So I love it.
So I'll speed up this part of the film, but I'm just recording it as it cools. You can kind of just watch it slowly cool, but it'll take a few minutes. And you see the extra that I pulled off into here. I just throw it back into my bag or my jar or whatever container I'm using for my Jett Sett. And this literally lasts forever. I've never seen any of it like go bad. You just use it again and again. This is new, so it's all nice and white and clean. After you've used it, you know, after you've used it a few times, it might not be so pristine, but it still works just as well, so it doesn't matter. They also make some varieties of this with like Kevlar in it to make it even harder. But for my purposes in the studio, the regular garden variety Jett Sett is like plenty hard enough to do everything I've ever wanted it to do. So I never really bothered with any other varieties. So you see, just a couple minutes later, it's all totally white and opaque, you know, and I can give this, you know, my vise a little extra squeeze to make sure it's nice and tight. And now I can set and don't have to worry about anything happening to my beautiful shank.